Light in your heart, shine bright like stars. You are free. Welcome to my channel, and thank you guys for sending me so much stuff. I'm actually putting this video together with quite a lot of information that people have sent me, and it's kind of taken a little while to fit it all in together into a puzzle, but it really is the puzzle of Atlantis. We're finding a theme occurring through all our timeline right now that is representing Atlantis. And I want to go into this. It ties into a nuke. It ties into 9/11. It ties into mRNA. It ties into Trump. So, I want to kind of go into this, how this whole theme of it, of Poseidon and Neptune, is just popping up everywhere. So stay with me. It's kind of exciting because it's really getting obvious that this is what we're reliving. We're basically reliving Atlantis and what happened with Atlantis when it got corrupted, and because they started to mess around with God's code. Well, God's code is the DNA, right? So as soon as humanity starts messing around with that, then, everything has to be kind of wiped clean. So we're kind of seeming like that this is what's, presenting itself again. There's the same theme going on in our reality. But first I want to go over the whole Kali Sarpa yoga, which is when all the planets are on one side of the wheel, and we have this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction coming up, and I think the moon is out of the Kali Sarpa yoga before this conjunction, but right after, like April 18th, we're back into all the planets being on one side. So after I did my last video, I had a comment from Joel, and he was saying that I don't think it is a Kali Sarpa yoga. There's another name for it. And it's funny because I had listened to Vedic astrologers, and they were all saying it was a Kali Sarpa yoga, but information truth is hard to find. So I did the research, and he's right that when the planets are on one side, it's called a Kali Sarpa yoga, but they have to be on the left side of the nodes. Okay, so on the left side of the wheel. When they're on the right side of the wheel, it's called Kala Amrita. And this is more of a spiritual lesson. So the Kala Sarpa yoga favors rise of material life, which is not what we really want. We don't want the corporeal reality. We want more of the spiritual journey, which is while the Kala Amrita favors the rise of spiritual matters. So this is good that it's all on the spiritual matters. So we're really in a spiritual war. Poseidon and Neptune are one and the same. So when I was listening to Barbara Marciniak, she was saying, the whole reason why Poseidon had 10 sons, 5 sets of twins, is because it was all genetic experiments. So this is what they were getting into in Atlantis. Okay, so he represents the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. So he's often regarded as the tamer or father of horses. And with a strike of his trident, he creates springs, which are related with the word horse. His Roman equivalent is Neptune. Now, it's interesting, in the Norse mythology, you have Sleipnir, which is basically Sittus, right? It's the horse that Odin rides. And he also creates like springs. There's a relationship to springs and kind of like quarries. Okay, there's a footprint of Sleipnir. So now the Poseidon became the lord of the sea following the defeat of his father Cronus, which is Saturn, when the world was divided by a lot among the 3 sons. Zeus was given the sky, Hades the underworld, and Poseidon the sea, with the earth and Mount Olympus belonging to all 3. Okay, so then the Trojans, during the Trojan War, which I spoke about last time, Poseidon was on one side of the war and Zeus, Jupiter, was on the other side of the war. And in the Odyssey, during the sea voyage from Troy back home to Ithaca, the Greek hero Odysseus provides his companion with a 10-year delay. I spoke about that mythology, right? He has to go through all these labors, and Poseidon keeps pushing him back to the beginning of his journey, and it's kind of like Hercules' labors. So then they're saying here, yeah, it's in Timus and Critia, the legend island of Atlantis was Poseidon's domain. So this is what I'm noticing. Okay, it's actually coming right down to our mRNA. It's showing. Actually, somebody sent that to me, showing that the symbol of the trident is in the code of the mRNA. But some of his mythology is with Triton. He ends up blowing the shell horn. He's like the monster, okay, like creating chaos, which I do believe that's his son. So they're showing here that the horn is being blown again. And I think actually, all the truckers, when they were blowing their horns, was blowing Triton's horns. Okay, and it's really weird because the my late husband and I used to go up to this cabin. It's up north in Quebec, and there's a Triton fishing game club. And so I have the book on all that club. And it's just, I don't know, it just gets really weird when these names keep coming up, and you start to see that, you have like breadcrumbs all through your life to make you pay attention to the words, right? So now I understand what Triton means. It's really this monster that creates chaos, and the horn has to be blown. Now, this is fascinating that Putin's Poseidon is the Russians' doomsday weapon and the trump card. Okay, so this is a nuke that can actually work underwater, I believe, and it can hit the coast of the United States. And this is why, like, Putin's got the trump card, because, he can take out the coastline. So the threat of nuclear holocaust once figured prominent in our psyches in the 1950s. School children did duck and cover drills to prepare for the atomic attack. And the 1983 film, The Day After, which was to do with New York, right, portraying a nuclear exchange and its hopeless aftermath, terrified audience and created the pressure for disarmament talks. So this nuke is actually tied to the doomsday clock because it's called the Russians' doomsday weapon. It's called Poseidon, and is not just the stuff of your grandfather's atomic nightmares. The average nuclear weapon is a missile-delivered device that could destroy a city, and in most formidable warhead cases, a great deal of area beyond. Poseidon, however, is a huge nuclear torpedo that some say could destroy the whole continent. And it's like, oh, how lovely. I don't think, I think anybody should be going into war with Russia. The Russian Navy fearsome Poseidon torpedo is not only a nuclear armed, but it is also a nuclear powered. And it is a massive, estimated at least 7 feet in diameter and around 100 tons. The torpedo foregoes the conventional high explosive warhead in favor of nuclear payload. So they're saying here that the Mark 48 that the US have doesn't compare to it. So unlike most conventional torpedoes, the Poseidon primary target wouldn't necessarily be the surface ship or other submarines. Thanks to the torpedo's large nuclear warhead, it could instead target large port cities vital to industry and trade, like the many cities that dot the U.S. east and west coasts. The weapon has another application as well, targeting U.S. aircraft carriers and their strike groups. Business Insider informed in 2018, as it stands, the U.S. doesn't have a way to defend against fast-moving torpedoes like Poseidon. How lovely. So I really do think they're going to try to destroy the US dollar. I was listening to financial experts saying that, it all ties around the US being related to the oil, like oil has to be sold in US dollars, right? And so all they have to do now is switch, the oil trade to China currency, and then the US currency will most likely tank, which I do believe that's what they're trying to do, is destroy the US dollar to take down the central banks, right? So while there's a risk of radioactivity at any time an atom is split, traditional nuclear weapons have typically used nuclear detonations to create heat and pressure, with lingering radioactive emerging only as a dangerous side effect. But the new Russian torpedo uses radioactive waste to deter, scare, and potentially punish enemies for decades. Nuclear weapons only generate significant amount of radioactive fallout when they are detonated at near or beneath ground level. So anyhow, so this is where we get the radiation. I know Barbara Marciniak did say that if you're in bliss state, the human body can withhandle a lot of radiation. So I'm always like, well, where's the radiation coming from? Is it a CME, a gamma ray, or is it going to be a nuke, right? So I'm always kind of like wondering where the radiation's coming from. But this would make sense, if they did something like this, there would be a radiation fallout. And then people would be not wanting to go outside, especially probably if you've been, taken the jab, maybe you wouldn't be able to handle it as well. For certain is that ours, in the age of which full-scale warfare between great powers must be a thing of the past, or will all be in the past. After all, existing nuclear weapons are already more than capable of laying waste to the entire planet. As to this, if you're interested, or if your entertainment tastes tend toward the morbid, check out Nuke Map. So you can go on this Nuke Map and see how big the fallout is. So it is kind of morbid, but it's just, I don't know, like we don't know like how this whole game is going to play out, but it's interesting that they're using the word Poseidon. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that it's all tying into Atlantis. And I honestly think that we're going back to Atlantis right now as we're kind of going into this transhuman agenda, messing with the God code. And it's like we have to kind of fix the timeline, what happened at Atlantis. So here in Florida, which is pretty close to where Trump lives, we have a Neptune beach. And we also have Jupiter, which is also on the coast of Florida, just above West Palm Beach. So it's just like, wow, like everything is there, ready to kind of play out. And it's kind of funny that across the island from West Palm Beach, there's a place called Freeport. It's like the names are there. So check this out. Right off Neptune Beach, they have like a cemetery. It's called the Memorial Reef, and you can cremate somebody and put them underneath the water, and they're referring to it like it's Atlantis. So Neptune Memorial Reef, located about 3 miles off the coast of Miami, Florida, is a truly unique artificial reef project. It does share some key points with other artificial reef projects around the world. The reef is being built on a sandy patch of the sea in about 40 feet of water. In this case, sand deposits that were eroded from the beaches further north. It has statues and other pieces of art similar in concept with other underwater art museums. The Neptune Memorial Reef is based on the concept of the lost sunken city, which is also something which is done elsewhere. However, the undersea structures here will cover 16 acres when completed. It will make the largest artificial reef in the world. The local government is allocating an adjacent 16 acres if the need rises. Another unique point is that it is located very near very deep water, which means that it can take on traits of a barrier reef. So anyhow, so it's just like wow. Okay, so they created this Atlantis off the coast of Florida. You know, many people say that's where Atlantis is and was, and this is, the Bermuda Triangle and everything is like a portal. And so I'm just like, oh my God, like this is just getting really weird. So they have this big lion there, right, as a symbol. So here's the lion in the underwater cemetery. But then recently, somebody just sent me this. You know how I'm always going on about Simba and the Lion King and how it's all tied into Obama? And he was trying to roast Trump there, and he said, "Look, I have my birthing movie," and he created the Lion King up, came up, and he pretended he was Simba. So basically, they've got this lion in Ukraine. His name's Simba, and they're taking him out of Ukraine. So I'm just like, it's getting like comical. So yeah, so Di sent me this that Donald Trump is calling out Poseidon on Twitter, and no one knows why. This is an old tweet, I believe. And yeah, so they're saying like, why is he doing this? And they're saying here, um, President Donald Trump is again throwing his aides an entire country for a loop by launching into a full-blown tirade against Poseidon, the lord and master of the ocean, the sea. None of the cable news shows were discussing Poseidon today by the time we ended the president's TV privileges. An unnamed White House source said, "Does he feel some sort of connection to Poseidon's father, Cronus, which is Saturn? Has someone been reading Odyssey to him recently? Does he just hate earthquakes? We honestly have no idea." Trump's tirade has set off an unmitigated crisis in the White House, as all the other work has been suspended until aides can determine a plan to deal with the president's most recent public scuffle. So I don't know what that was all about, but I think it's just he's making us be aware that this is all about Poseidon. We know he has that statue of Neptune outside Mar-a-Lago, right? So it's like, he's making us pay attention to this. So I found this other tweet where they were kind of like making a joke at people, Trump supporters, because there's these people on this lake and the wind got bad, and they're like, oh, so they thank Poseidon for taking the Trump boat down, and they were making jokes that Poseidon did this. It got so ridiculous, it tied into Biden. So with this meme came up, and they called it Poseidon for Biden. Because the Poseidon was taking out the Trump supporters. And I'm just like, okay, this is getting like, I don't know, guys. This is getting really weird. And then Biden recently was, shouting out to, I guess it was the Navy or troops. He was visiting troops in Ukraine, right? And so he's shouting out to them, don't jump, don't jump, which is like, don't jump ship or whatever, I don't know what he's referring to, but it's like, you want to jump because we want to jump out of this friggin' timeline, okay? This is what I really believe, that somehow this is the negative timeline and we got to jump to the future so we can go back in time and fix Atlantis. That's really what I believe. I think we're time travelers. This is what Barbara MARCINIAK is saying. Somebody asked her, all this reference to Trump and time travel. And she goes, yeah, time travel is not as complicated as people think. And somebody sent me a video on this guy that's written a book on time travel. I'll drop it in the description box. And he's explaining how wormholes work and that you want to go into a black hole so that brings you to the future. And then once you're in the future, through the fabric of time, you can come back without tearing the fabric of time, come back to the past. But if you go to the light, you go back in time. So it's like, the concept of time, being like past, present, future all happening at the same time is like hard to get your head around. But I really do believe it's kind of like that. We're stuck in some type of time warp here. And it's on this repetitive theme of, humanity starts to mess with the God code, and then it has to be destroyed, and then everything has to like grow again. A new society has to grow, because once you start messing with the God code, it's corrupt, right? It's transhumanism. So there's this whole worship to Poseidon. Okay, so Poseidon also tied into the Oracle of Delphi, and then Apollo ended up taking it over. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. It ties into mental disturbances, right? Because Neptune can kind of make you kind of not see reality for what it really is. But then they're saying here the Hippocratic text of 400 BC on the sacred diseases says that he was blamed for certain types of epilepsy. Okay, so there's that. He's also tied to like something like the Olympic Games, but they were called the Ishmianan Games. Okay, so he's tied to these games. So that's kind of like what we're in. We're kind of like in a game right now. And then, of course, he's tied to the horses, being the god of the horses, but the horses are the winds. So they're kind of like the storms. Now, that's what I'm starting to realize is that, you know, Zephyrus blows Venus to the shore, but he's the west wind, and Boreas is the north wind, but they're really the four horses, and the four horses are really the four cardinal points of the winds. Okay, so that's what the four horses are. So when I was a little girl, I remember always thinking about north, east, west, and south was the name the news. The news was named after the four cardinal points. I remember thinking that. Okay, so that's what the news is. It's the four cardinal points. We also know that he's the father of Pegasus with Medusa, and when her head got chopped off, Pegasus popped out. Demeter, which is Persephone's mother, also known as Ceres. Poseidon stalked her. When she disguised herself as a mare among the herd of mares in the hope of throwing him off, he changed himself to a stallion and raped her. Okay, so he can become a horse as well, Poseidon. I won't read all this text, but they're saying here that he can actually part the sea. So he's kind of like Moses in a way. He parts the sea with his horses. Okay, so they know that he is the Lord. So, you know, Poseidon is the Lord of the sea. And, you know, everything's about admiralty law. Like we're basically controlled by the law of the sea. But they make it seem like we're like land creatures, and I really believe that we came from the sea. Okay, we're not coming from monkeys. Okay, I think we, you know, because we're mostly water. We are mostly water, and I do believe that we're from the sea. You know, Pisces is the house of spirituality, and it's the two souls, and your soul is a, you know, it's a fish. So here we have the tannin monster. And this would be kind of like the beast, the sea monster, again, you know, which causes chaos and evil. Okay, so they change it in the Bible. You know, the tannin is listed in the Apocalypse in Isaiah as among the sea beasts to be slain by Yahweh on that day, translated in the King James Version as the dragon. So the dragon is really a sea monster. Okay, so the tannin was the name applied to ancient Egyptian and the Exodus of Canaan. Sorry. And so, you know, I said before that the dragon could also be, you know, the moon, but the moon represents water. So it's like a water monster. So it's tied to the moon, but, you know, it's all, obviously it's just symbolism, but it's in the sky. This is tied to Sittus. And this is weird because it even ties the rise of the gas prices into the story. The term gas in chemistry was coined by a Dutch chemist, Jean Baptiste van Helmont, to the 17th century, directly based on the Paracelsian notion of chaos. The G in gas is due to the Dutch pronunciation of this letter as a spiriant, also employed to pronounce the Greek X. So the number 24, you know, X is the spot. It's all tying into gas. So gas is chaos, basically. The term chaos has been adapted in modern comparative mythology and religious studies as referring to the primordial state before creation, strictly combining two separate notions of primordial waters or primordial darkness from which a new order emerges, and the primordial state as a merging of the opposites, such as heaven and earth. So yeah, so you can't create, you know, how a diamond is created is through pressure. You know, this chaos is pressure. So this is what we're going through. We're basically going through alchemy, but it's just so funny, you know, like how the gas is part of it. You know, it's like every single thing that's happening is relating back to mythology. It's just, you know, it's just, you don't know it, right? Because you don't know the mythology, but it's just so weird how it keeps kind of like showing up. Like you guys send me stuff, and then all of a sudden I start to see like it's leading us to like, it's revealing the whole illusion. Okay, so Sherilyn had a consultation with me, and she downloaded me for 4 hours on how all the information that she's found. I'm not going to go through all of it today because I will get to it, but it's a big story. So I was pretty excited because she had tied Neptune to Osama bin Laden. So, you know, 9/11 is tied to Poseidon. Now, he was born on August 11th, you know, so that's 8/11, so 88, in 1988. Okay, so the 88 is, I'll get into that, exactly what, you know, that means. We have the orbit of Mercury is 88, but there's also other things. And then they killed him on May 2nd, 2011. And this is wild because the operation for taking him out, the code name Operation Neptune Spear, was ordered by the United States President Barack Obama and carried out by the U.S. General Intelligence Agency, CIA operation. So, yeah, so the raid was in bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad. So it's like a bot is bad. You know, it's like the AI is bad. It's where they they took him out, right? We were giggling about this. And they also buried him at sea, you know, saying that they didn't want a shrine, you know, for people to worship him. But they, you know, it's all tied into Operation Neptune Spear. They mention it was a moonless night. So like moonless, like that's like the womb. It's kind of like darkness. It's like, you know, death, right? And they mentioned 55-45 situation that it was. They didn't know, you know, how it was going to happen. And yeah, they had a tracking dog called Cairo, so it's tied into Egypt. 3 of the SEALs were especially tasked to seek out bin Laden. So yeah, so there's like they leave like little breadcrumbs everywhere. And this is weird. So they go through all his name, right? Like all the different names that he was called, Osama bin Laden. But they also called him the Lion Sheik. Okay, so now we go back to the lion again. Okay, so it's Operation Neptune, and his name is the Lion Sheik. Okay, so then they have this Neptune cemetery off the coast of Florida with the lion, and it's all tied into Atlantis and Poseidon, Neptune. And it's just like, whoa. Okay, so when they took him out on May 2nd, 2011, Poseidon was on the tail of the whale, of Cetus, the beast. Okay, so that's like, okay, so that's interesting. There's an Osama bin Laden Barack Obama connection. Like Osama bin Laden had the head wound, right? Which is supposed to be that Satan is supposed to have the head wound. But you know, we do think that when this everything collapses and they try to create the New World Order, they're going to put Obama back in power. Now, when he was born, Poseidon was in the same location as it was when they took Osama bin Laden out, okay, on the tail of the whale. And getting back to Osama bin Laden's like 88 connection, because he was born in 88 on the 8th, the 11th day of the 8th month. The 8 represents the analemma of the moon and the sun. It creates like a figure 8. It's like they both create like this Mobius strip, right? And it's also the orbit of Mercury, which is your mind. Okay, your mind has to figure out this illusion. So there's, other YouTubers that are starting to see like all these connections, right? But they don't see the bigger picture that it's all tied into Atlantis. So this other YouTuber was noticing that Trump was tying in um, um, Huawei, the computer, and they're using the number 88 all the time in their ads. Okay, so you can see that they're using it, but this is all to do with your mind. Your mind is the number 88, basically. It's the two pillars, the moon and the sun pillar. You got to get to the middle pillar. It's also the strength card. The strength card is the lion. It's number 8. Mercury also rules commerce. Okay, and I always said Trump was Mercury, and then the last rally he did, where he was saying that China's probably going to invade Taiwan, he did it in Commerce, Georgia. Okay, I think the next one's in Washington. So they're using all the symbolism from the founding of the United States, which is, I do believe, was created for these times. The Constitution was created for now. It wasn't so much created for back then. It's to make sure that the American people can fight a tyrannical government legally, because obviously in Canada we can't. We're now called terrorists, and you get your bank accounts frozen. But the American people can stand up to this legally. And this is where it gets really weird, because Di sent me this, and she noticed that they were using the Neptune symbol when they swapped out the uridine in the mRNA, and they transferred it with pseudo-uridine. Okay, that's how that's how they created the jab. Okay, but they're using the symbol for Neptune in there. So it's like they're doing the genetic experiments as for Atlantis all over again. So uridine, right, it has to do with the ribose ring, right? It has to do with the ribonucleic acid, basically, the ring. The rib is where, it ties into the woman was made from Adam's rib. It's all tying into this. It's all to do with DNA, okay? So the uridine, the symbol is U or Urd. Well, you get this in the Norse mythology, the 3 Norns that are relating to the past, present, and future. One of the Norns is called Jord. So, this is really crazy, because they're like basically one of the 3 fates, or you can have the Erins, the fates. They're all the same. It's basically past, present, and future, right? So when you go like Jord or you're in, you're in. You're in or you're out, right? So the whole, even the word urine is coded. Okay, so I was like, okay, so what is uridine? Like, I wonder if this is tied to urine. And of course it is. It's in urine. So back to the friggin' urine, the nectar of the gods again. So this is the symbol for pseudo-uridine. You can see it more clearly there. And it's really the trident symbol of Neptune, right? His spear. So the uridine isomer is in human urine. So there's different opinions on whether or not it's destroyed or not. So some foods that contain uridine in the form of RNA are listed below, although claims that virtually none of the uridine in this form is bioavailable, since as shown by, there's testing that it's destroyed in the liver, in the gastrointestinal tract, and no food when consumed has ever been reliably shown to elevate blood uridine levels. This is in contradiction to Yamamoto at a plasma uridine levels rose 1.8-fold 30 minutes after beer indigestion, suggesting at the very least conflicting data. On the other hand, ethanol on its own, which is present in beer, increases uridine levels, which may explain the rise of uridine levels in the study. They also say it's in mother's milk and commercial infant formulas. Uridine is present in monophosphate, UMB. sorry, UMP, which is both bioavailable. So, in the circulation of digestive tract. So your body can absorb it. It's in urine. And I just find it really weird that they're taking the uridine out, they're modifying it, doing like um, vitro, and changing it, and then putting it back into the body for the jab. Okay, so why are they doing that? It's like they're doing that, okay, it's to do with the spike protein, and this is how you can, fight a disease. But I think it's like tying into your body not being able to have normal uridine. Okay, it's like there's something about it, right? Obviously, there's something about it, and the fact that it's in urine, is which is phosphorus, and I think it has to do with your body to be able to absorb radiation. It has to be something like that. It's got to be. Okay, so because if you can handle radiation, you make it through. You're able to use your body to get out of this crazy realm that we're in. So anyhow, Sherilyn had this huge download, and it was all about Osama bin Laden being killed just below Sri Lanka. There's this island called the Diego Garcia. Okay, and this is a secret underwater military base is there. Okay, it's basically a nuclear base, okay, where they have nukes there. And he was shot and killed and buried just off this coast. But the weird thing is, this island looks like a foot. It looks like a heel, like Chiron's foot, which is tied into Ophiuchus. Okay, now Ophiuchus, I'm going to go into more. She gave me a lot more information, but I just want to kind of tie this all in to the jab, because you see how this island looks like a foot, and that Chiron gets the wound on his foot, and he represents the wound that you have to heal in yourself to be able to get out the Chiron door. And Chiron, the glyph, is a key, and you have to be able to get out Ophiuchus, right? And that's the snake that you hold and you walk out. You're the healer. You have your own self. The whole story with Achilles' heel is that Chiron was Achilles' teacher, and he was also Asclepius' teacher. Asclepius is Ophiuchus that's holding the snake. Okay, they should have called it Asclepius constellation, not Ophiuchus, but just to confuse you. But it's all tied into getting a wound and having to heal from it. Achilles was dipped into the Nemosin River, but not his heel. So he had this wound on his heel, basically the same as his teacher, Chiron. Okay, but it all ties into Ophiuchus, because Ophiuchus is the way out. Okay, so what's so weird is the Ophiuchus symbol is the U, the same as uridine. So they're also showing that it's related to the ribose ring, which is about the same as ribonucleic. Okay, but ribonucleic, it's a sugary substance, and guess what? There's a cloud of it in the constellation Ophiuchus. It's like you can't make this stuff up. It's just getting like crazy. So here they're explaining how it's in the constellation of Ophiuchus. The molecule is one of the ingredients in the formation of RNA, which is like DNA, to which it is related, is one of the building blocks of life. So yeah, and then they're saying here it's called the propionyl to form ribose, which is a major component of RNA. So yeah, I'm just like, okay, my mind is blown. What's happening in the sky is all related to astrology and the symbolism and the mythos, and it's actually what's happening in our timeline, with this mRNA. So I'm just like, wow, this is like so crazy. It's like it's all a movie. It's all just playing out. It's just basically Atlantis all over again. So hang on tight with this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction that's coming up on April 12th. like I said, it hasn't happened on this location of the sky, on the tail of the whale, for 166 years. You can see here that Poseidon is actually, who also represents Neptune, but he's up by Sagittarius, which is bringing him luck, right? So it's like Poseidon has the power. And this is where Elvis and David Bowie were born, up, on the Cape of Sagittarius. So, yep, I think it's going to get intense. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. But now we know why the gas prices are high. Now we know, what's going on with the jab and the mRNA, how that's all tying into the story. So it's really getting kind of crazy. All the pieces are falling into place. So it's just watching the movie as it unfolds. So enjoy, guys. If anybody wants a reading, let me know. And take care. Bliss to you all. Please hit that like and subscribe button, because the more people that do, the more people will be able to see it, my videos, through the algorithms. And I think it's just gives people a peace of mind to know that this is just one hell of a story that we're in.